beautiful people? It's your girl Vernay, and today is week 4 of our Boundaries versus Standards series. And today we're getting super real about access. Not everyone deserves the same version of you that they once had. Sometimes growth will teach you that. Growth will teach you that you have outgrown spaces that you may have felt like you were supposed to be in. And sometimes we confuse healing with reconnecting. That's where we have to draw the line between boundaries and standards, because it can be very blurry when we're going and walking and navigating through life. And just because you've forgiven someone doesn't mean that they deserve a front row seat in your life again. Sometimes people have to see what you're doing from a side view or from the background. They didn't appreciate when they had that access, so they don't deserve that same access, especially when you know your worth and your value. A boundary says, this is where I protect my peace. But a standard, this is the level that you have to rise to in order to stay in my life. And sometimes you have to put that out there and make that very clear. And let's be honest, some people couldn't meet your standard even with the manual. And that's not to burden, that's not your burden necessarily to fix. It's your responsibility to recognize. When you start knowing who you are, you start knowing your worth, your value, you'll start seeing all of these different things. You ever notice that the more you elevate, the more you start seeing who was really just comfortable with the old version of you? Some people didn't want you to elevate. Some people don't want you to grow. They love the version of you where they can treat you a certain way. And don't let guilt make you feel obligated to stay connected to what you've outgrown. Your peace does not require permission, and your growth doesn't need validation. And your healing doesn't need to be shared with everyone. Not everyone is going to be happy with where you are and where you're going in life. Sometimes you need to just sit with yourself and tell yourself, this is the version of me that I am now. I love the person that I'm becoming. This week, I want you to sit with this question and ask yourself an honest question. Am I maintaining relationships out of love or out of loyalty to a past version of me? Because sometimes we'll get stuck in a past version of ourselves and we'll start to feel guilty. And be real about it with yourself, because staying loyal to your standards sometimes means closing doors, but not out of malice. Sometimes you have to close those doors out of grace and not reopening them because you're lonely or because it's a habit or because you feel guilty. Protect your assets, because you are the prize and not everyone gets a second chance to mishandle you. They had an opportunity to do it right and they mishandled. And this is me speaking from personal experience. Let's be honest. I've been mishandled before, emotionally, spiritually, and even energetically. There were times people took from me without ever really just pouring back into me. Times they showed up when I was convenient for them, left me questioning my worth, my value, looking at things from such a flawed perspective, and questioning things that I shouldn't have even been questioning within myself. And sometimes, I know for me, I kept giving them the benefit of the doubt, even when their patterns was screaming otherwise. And I neglected my own feelings because of just trying to be there for other people. But here's the truth. There's another side of that. I've also mishandled myself. And when I say I mishandle myself, it's because sometimes we see things, we ignore the red flags that repeatedly come in our minds, and we try to make excuses for the red flags that we may be seeing. Oh no, not this person. Oh no, that. And we don't ever see it for really what it is. We be in a state of denial. I've overextended, I've overcompensated, and I overlooked what I knew was hurting me deep down inside, just to keep the peace or just avoid a feeling alone or that fear of abandonment, which a lot of us go through and we're afraid to be honest about. And when it comes to self-awareness, I had to ask myself those really tough questions. And I mean, I sit with myself on a daily basis. I'm so real with myself because I need to know this. Am I tolerating people that are no longer aligned with the woman that I'm becoming? That's a question that I ask myself. Am I shrinking or bending just to stay connected to people who have already shown me who they are? Have I truly held myself accountable for a role that I played and staying too long, giving too much, or silencing my own personal needs just to feel relevant and validated or feel valued by other people? Because healing isn't just about blocking people. It's about building walls. It's about recognizing when I've betrayed my own standards just because of the feeling of wanting to feel seen or wanting to feel loved. I don't say this from a place of bitterness, because I am not bitter at all. If anything, I am much better than what I was at one point in time. I say it from a place of clarity. A boundary says to me that this is where I protect my peace. My standard says this is the energy I allow in my space because I know who I am. And because I know who I am, I don't have to deal with anything less than. And truthfully, some of the hardest decisions that I've ever had to make and still are making were about not reopening doors that God already closed. No matter how much history, love, or loyalty was behind it. And I truly, with tears in my eyes, had to come to a realization that when someone mishandles your heart, your trust, your energy, whether it's intentional or not, it creates this wound. And if I keep offering access to these very people without holding them accountable for their action, that wound only has room to just grow deeper and deeper. And the truth is, I can forgive you. I can still choose to love myself enough, though, not to allow that same access again. And I can also forgive myself, because in forgiving myself, I'm learning who I am, and I'm standing on the standards that I set before me. For all the times that I let insecurity or loneliness cloud my judgment, even when I knew better. So this week, again, I want you to simply just think back of a time where you found yourself in a dark space and you didn't know how to protect your peace. You didn't know your worth or your value. I want you to know now it's okay to protect your peace. Honor yourself, honor others, honor the people that are in your life that are truly loving the person that you're becoming. They're supporting you. They're there for you, not for what they're gaining, just because they love the person that you are. Don't make it passive, make it intentional, because you're done offering passes to people who only show up as visitors and only want to come around when it's convenient or when they feel like they're getting some kind of service from you. Know who you are. And I'm not saying that it's a tit for tat thing when it comes to relationships, but in relationships, it should be intentional, not transactional all the time. I don't have to hear from you for days on end to know that your love is still valued in my life. But when you're intentional about things, you know your worth, you know your value, you're going to put in the effort, and the people that love you, they're going to put in just as much effort as well, because it goes both ways. It's a reciprocal thing. You don't want to be in one-sided friendships, relationships, even with family members. It doesn't matter who it is. You always want to have that reciprocal relationship of love, of value, people that really honor and respect the person that you are, and most importantly, the person that you're becoming. I love you all, and I'll see you next week as we keep diving deeper and deeper into our Stay Loyal to Your Standards series. And I thank you all for supporting me on this journey. Much love to you. Peace and blessings.